from 7 to 9 was an amendment to the first schedule of the Principal Act. And the Principal Act here means the IBC Act of 2011. That was Act number 9 of 2011. So this IBC Amendment Act of 2024, when it was a bill, it sought to amend the first schedule. A schedule is always, part of a bill. It normally comes towards the end. So the way a bill is structured, of course, there is the title, the substance of the bill, then the schedules, the transitional and solid clauses, etc. But for now, I will focus on the first schedule, or the schedule of this bill. So the first schedule of the IBC Act of 2011 was amended now through this particular act, which is now operational, and the president signed it into law, I think, a week or so ago. So when you look at this composition, it does consist of 9 persons. Two persons who are nominated by the Parliamentary Service Commission, representing the majority party or coalition of parties, the minority party or coalition of parties. So that is the Opio Wanai faction, and you have the Kimani Kuria faction. Those are members of the PSC. Right? So of course you expect, that is a political nomination. Those are 2 slots, you have 7 slots remaining. The next 3 slots, are persons nominated by the political parties liaison committee, of whom one shall be from a party other than a parliamentary party or coalition of parties. And then 2 shall be from a parliamentary party or coalition of parties forming the national government. Okay? Like ANC, or just all those affiliate parties, that merged with UDA to form government. And then the last slot, of the 3 nominees from the political parties liaison committee will come from a parliamentary party or coalition of parties not forming the national government. Okay? So either could be opposition, or other, solitary parties out there. And then those are now 3 slots. Add them to the 2 slots, from PSC. Those are 5 slots already. So there's a political connotation attached to that already. Okay? So now we are moving to those aligned with the politics of the people. So the next representative of the selection panel, one person will have to be nominated by the Law Society of Kenya, that is our society, as advocates. And we expect, of course, LSK, as it keeps on doing so, to check on the exercise of power and just to balance the same by being the voice of the members of the public. So those are 3, 4, 5, 6 slots already. And then the last 3 will be one person will be nominated by the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya, that is ISPAC. And then the last 2 persons will be nominated by the Interreligious Council of Kenya. So those are nice names. So here, the task, not the task, but the selection panel has 9 members. But 5 of these members of the selection panel shall be, at least they shall have some influence from either the political masters, political, or party leaders, or people who perhaps call the shots in those, parties. So technically, we are at a disadvantage, I would say that, unless miracles happen, but I do feel we are at a disadvantage. I'd rather those 2 extra slots, at least 2 extra slots were removed from the, nominees from the political parties liaison committee, and those 2 slots be allocated to members of the public. See, so I think in as much as this particular bill, which is now a law, with the force, that is backing, the same, 5 of the 9 members of the selection panel, they are from the political side. So technically, if we were to have, the best candidates as, commissioners to the IBC, remember the way IBC is constituted right now, it doesn't have, the apex policy-making organ. So the apex policy-making organ lies with the commission. And just to bring to your attention, patriots, there is a legislative proposal right now at the National Assembly. In April this year, this sort of proposal wanted to give, powers of the commissioners to the secretariat. So, like in the absence of a well-constituted commission, then the secretariat, which is headed by Marjan Hussein Marjan, the CEO of IBC, who has the secretariat, shall now have powers to conduct elections. And elections here include even by-elections. So for me, that is an upfront, and a desecration to the sanctity of our constitution, because that bill, not yet a bill, published for us as members of the public to comply with in accordance with Article 10 when it comes to public participation, but it is a legislative proposal likely to be published into a bill. So that was the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2023. It is still a legislative proposal, but it is equally my worry, and I would do my best. LSK will equally do the best to just keep track. And if a shove comes to push, then it means if Parliament, that is the National Assembly, would enact or pass this particular legislation, then it will open room for rigging, because there's no way you would tell me that a secretariat of a commission can have the same kind of footing, influence, power, and oversight more than a 7-member constituted commission. So that is why I'm having a very big problem with this particular IBC Act, that yes, we have 9 members of the selection panel, but I would, bet that LSK will never play second fiddle to government, and neither will they, have any other motive to join government in whatsoever capacity. The other day, when you saw our, able president, Miss Faith Odhiambo, was nominated as part of the audit, committee, well, through the council, and which my learned colleague here, Steve, sits in, that issue, statement saying and notifying the president that we have no problem with the substance of what, is on that particular statement, but we have a problem with the procedure. And the procedure dictates that the office of the, Auditor General should have the powers to audit all this particular. That is a constitutional right that we can never take it, away from her, because LSK stands to protect, safeguard, uphold, and defend the rule of law.
PLO, sorry.
So PLO. That's the overview I was giving. So back to you, Steve.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I would like you to handle the IBC, and then there's another question on the same. So I would like you to approach the one for PLO on the IBC, and the other one on the financial, you leave it for now, so that Achin can ask you this another question on the same IBC, if you can take the both.
I think the concerns my learned colleague has raised, Mr. Patrick, PLO, on the issues of the composition is a fact that the political class obviously has a higher representation when it comes to the select panel, members of the select panel, because for obvious reasons that it also has a political process. And it's unfortunate that some of these decisions over time have been made with very little participation by the members of the public, when some of these bills have been pending for a very long time. If you can remember, the signing of this particular bill involved a lot of it was a result of these protests that were taking place. And I think that was one of the first agreement that was signed as a one of the proposed recommendations from the NADCO. And I think Honorable Raila Odinga, when they went to witness this particular assenting of this law. But I can say over and above that even as it may, because this is what we are working with, and this is a particular law that is already in place, and we need to put in place as a commission of the IBC. It is our business as citizens of this country to also be vigilant, to know these persons who are going to be elected, to vet them. We also have to vet them and know their conduct and and be able to participate when we are called to give any opinions for the commissioners. We file a memorandum if we have concerns about their integrity, if we have concerns about these persons who have been recommending to form the commission. We know any information that may make them not offer the best service to this country. We submit this information and we share it and we broadcast it widely and wildly, because that is the only way that we are able to call out and shame those who we know are going to bring this country down. And I think with your kind permission, I can request you also accord our former president, Mr. Eric Theuri, a chance to comment on this particular issue. I think he's on the platform. You can add him as one of our speakers.
Could you request the mic, or I send him the mic directly?
You can send him the mic directly.
Give them the name, kindly.
Eric Theuri.
Eric. Okay, carry on as I proceed searching for him. Eric, can you raise your hand? Oh my God, this is embarrassing. Sorry, guys. Let me find you.
There's something else I wanted to mention, and which is separately from the issue of the IBC, which is in regard to the issues Kenyans have been raising. And I think the government, and if they are agents of the government in this particular space right now, it's good. They appreciate that when the president was vying for this particular seat to serve this country. Good. Thank you. Before this, Eric take over, I wanted to mention that the president of this country vied on the mantra of socio-economic justice, and he really pushed that narrative of how he's going to transform the lives of the young people, the lives of our mothers, the lives of our brothers and sisters who are also in informal sectors, in border sectors, and those hopes that were created under the issue of socio-economic justice. What Kenyans and what we observe is that the actions the state and the state machineries, state agents have been taking all through have not shown any aspect of goodwill in realization of these rights. And that is why that aspect has made most Kenyans feel that life is becoming unbearable, education is becoming unaffordable. Students right now, you look at the university model they're using right now, is becoming untenable for most of the students to be able to be in school. The kind of the workplace, I hear one of the speakers was mentioning about the KRA issue, but I think the most concerned part is not even the collecting agent, but how the money is being spent, because nobody has an issue paying for tax. If I pay for more tax, but I know if I go to hospital, things are going to be okay. If I go to school, I will find books. Capitation for high schools will be sent on time, so our schools will not have to call our parents and call us to demand that we pay money for children, or our parents to pay money for children who are in school. So these are the challenges, and lack of accountability has made most Kenyans feel aggrieved, and that's why we need to remain vigilant about this. Over to you, President Theuri.
Thank you so much, Steve, and everyone else for what has been a very insightful and wonderful conversation in terms of what would be the way forward for the country arising from the recent agitation for greater adherence to the principles of good governance and upholding the Constitution. From the beginning, the first thing that we must emphasize is that we all have a responsibility under the Constitution to obey the Constitution. Not only do we have a responsibility to obey the Constitution, we do have a responsibility to uphold the values and the spirit of the Constitution. And one of the spirits of the Constitution is patriotism. And we exercise patriotism as citizens by engaging in the affairs of the management of the country. And I think that is what we have been doing. And we do that directly and indirectly. And I think that for quite a period of time, we've had that direct exercise of that responsibility. And I think that anyone, every Kenyan should be proud of the actions that have been undertaken in the direct exercise of the sovereignty that we all enjoy as Kenyans, the direct exercise of the principles of patriotism. And I think I would urge that even as we consider some of the questions that have been posed, especially with regard to the reconstitution of the IEBC, because it's one of the very, very big things that we are going to face as a country, given that the referee that we choose for the election players in the next election, the referees that we choose in the question of boundaries delimitation, the referees that we choose to prepare for any by-elections that may arise, or currently the positions that need to be filled, must be a referee that would inspire confidence and would give the public the feeling that they would be able to discharge that function independently and as required under the Constitution. And why is this important? This is important because the current environment is an environment where majority of the Kenyans seems to be saying that we have certain questions in terms of how we are being governed. We appear to be having a crisis of confidence in terms of where we are going as a country, and whether we might be justified in that feeling or not. There is almost general consensus that there is a need to change the manner in which we are governed. And part of governance is the manner in which the feedback by the public is taken into consideration before government decisions are made. So my take would be that as we undertake this process, we know that the IEBC selection panel is to be reconstituted. We know the composition, and the composition is heavier on the political side. But my thinking is that even one person, like Wangari Maathai once said, that hummingbird, even one person in a selection panel of about 7 can still make a difference. And so therefore it is absolutely important that those first who would be sent to the selection panel should be people that have a track record and of integrity, that would be people that would inspire this country, that would be able to make and pick the right persons for considerations to appointment into that office. And so once that team is constituted and the advertisements are put out and the names of those who are likely to be picked as commissioners are put out and shortlisted, there needs to be extensive and robust, independent and credible public participation in terms of the submission of memorandum, in terms of submissions of character memorandum, in terms of submissions of integrity memorandum, so that then the selection panel is at a place where they have a flood of information that would help them to make the right choices. Because if we get the right people in office through the exercise of our power to public to participate in the process, then we are one step ahead in terms of ensuring that we have, one, people of integrity, and two, then that they have a job that is completely cut out for them. We must not, we must understand the assignment that is before us, the weight of the work that is going to be faced by those who come into office, because there are two very, very important constitutional considerations. One, the question of delimitation of boundaries, and two, the test that we expect will be put to the commissioners, one in terms of conducting the by-elections that are required to be conducted, and some that may come up in the near future. And also, perhaps what is often talked about, that there might be a test on them as citizens attempt to exercise the right to recall. So it basically means that whoever comes in must be ready from day one to discharge their functions as commissioners of the IEBC. I'll still be on this space, so if there are any questions of a legal nature, then I can join the other panel in trying to respond to them. But I just want to say that I'm delighted by the numbers that have joined this conversation, and I think that if we can keep up these conversations, if we can keep up greater scrutiny in terms of how we are governed as a country, and if we can keep up this spirit of making positive and constructive criticism and contributions, so that we can enrich the public participation process for anything that the government wants to do on our behalf as Kenyans, then we will surely witness a new dawn in terms of the manner in which this country is run, and the manner in which decisions that affect all of us as Kenyans are made and implemented. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Senior. I'll call you that because you're very senior. Now, there's one question from one of us. She requested to speak after PLO on the same before you can take your rest. Aching, you can take the mic if it's in relation with what we're discussing, and then you can continue the discussion.
Hi, thank you. Actually, my sentiments have been covered by my seniors, both former President Eric and Rafiki PLO. But just to corroborate and emphasize what they've said, and then I'll continue on to the conversation you are having. It is very true we're facing a very big challenge with IBC with regards to the political parties having an upper hand at us than us. As we have to give ourselves props. This thing started like a joke, but it's reached a point where our voice are actually being listened to globally out there. And as we continue and we rally ourselves once more, there's something that you said before on us having a proper channel, and also Eric talked about it in the previous speakers. Our voice on the street is very constructive, and it is good, and it is pushing for the change that we want. But today I'm going to be here just to talk about the uncomfortable conversations that we push aside for so long, because it will reach a point we need to have those uncomfortable conversations. PLO said that out of the commission, we have even no chance of, so far, we have no chance of even, let's say, us fronting somebody, because this voice of ours, the only way that it is channeled and it can be put on record is if somebody stands up and says, these people, us as we've said, we're leaderless, we are putting somewhere, fronting somebody over here. One thing that will also come back to bite us as as a people is the fact that we fight each other and we fight everyone. In 48 laws of power, we need to know who is our ally and who is not our ally. We can't just be making enemies with everyone who says something different to an opinion that we have, to an opinion different than us. Yeah, we need a strategy. And as much as we're leaderless, if one person could just come up to that panel, to the commission, to be one of the commissioners, it would put so much strength on us, because right now, truth be told, we're not ally to any political party. They might be there silently just watching us, waiting for us to dim down, but we don't want to dim down. The only way this movement has picked up, and Martha Karua started, not Martha Karua, sorry, I'm so sorry. The late, what is her name?
Wangari Maathai.
Remind. Yes,
Wangari
thank you.
Maathai.
Yes, thank you. Wangari Maathai started like a joke. Mau freedom fighters, they started like a joke. But I always believe what you conceive and perceive in your mind is eventually what you end up achieving. We have achieved so much, but right now we're at the point where this juncture where we need structures. IBC is such a very big animal that if we think we're going to make noise on the streets and the noise is not implemented on some formal piece of paper, then we're really going to lose big time, because at the grassroots level, those people don't have these Twitter X spaces. Most of them are even wondering what's going on. Them kura watajua watapiga kura, na commissioners wale watakuwa hapo, wata-oversee everything, and everything will be good. So if we don't have somebody out of all these commissioners, if we can't have somebody, if we're not even aligned to somebody who speaks good for us, we're going to be at a losing end. And we really need to participate very, very, we need to turn out. I don't think we've ever witnessed public participation like what has just happened in this country. And IBC is our only way out. We can't make noise forever. We need our actions to be implemented. And the only way we can rightfully, legally implement our actions, and it's taken even by other people, is if we can share out our channels, our voice in a manner that's well. One last thing. I've been the Uhuru Park thing. I've gotten a glimpse of it that apparently it wasn't even our poster. And you see, this is something that we also have to recognize. These same spaces have the government listening in, have the pleasers listening in. It's also our spaces. So the Uhuru Park thing, somebody said it like a joke, I believe, in a space, or it wasn't. And the thing was there. But you see, we didn't show up, or I don't know, maybe people are planning to show up, but we need somewhere where our voice will be taken as one. If this thing is posted there, we know this is it. This is our voice. Because now what's happening is our voice is being infiltrated. And that is why the police, even yesterday, went purportedly, they're banning protests, kivipi, aje. Even me as a wakili, nilisimama nikasema, is it possible? But the fact that I even questioned myself is even bad enough. So as I yield the mic, I just want us to see on how we can have our voice to be documented. Our voice is really strong. And I believe the way we go out to the streets, I believe if we just say that one channel that says, guys, we're meeting at Nation Center. After Nation Center, we're proceeding to Uhuru Park, and we will sit there and we will camp there. But now you see, we don't have people come. People are beaten aimlessly. Tunachapwa kama manyoka, tunauliwa. People are being intimidated. People are being becoming more scared to get out. We need to really use our. You strike when it's still hot. So that's just all.
Sorry about that. Did you finish your submission?
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. That's just all I have to say. And IBC is one of our main concerns. And if we can have a voice, the political parties have a big voice. We need to find a way of our voice being actually channeled, because this hizi zote ni votes, ndio kwa maana wanashtuka. But hizi votes isipotranslate square kura, we'll be at a very losing end, and we'll still be angry for the next 5 years. And I don't want to carry on this anger in my heart.
Thank you very much, Cheng. Thank you very much, PLO, for that highlight. I actually had to peruse through my internet to that thing that you just mentioned. And thank you, Eric, for the input. Thank you, Steve, for that. We really appreciate this kind of knowledge. And as Cheng has mentioned, we really have a civic education upcoming campaign that we really must do. Like right now, each and everyone that is here, we are mandated to start doing the civic education because a fraction of people that are online are the majority, and also the other majority and the minority who are offline are also the people that always messes up mostly, because I think the next election, this would be the first one in history whereby us, the Gen Zs, are going to really champion for vote, and we'll see very new faces, if at all. As we are watching and voicing out our voices, we'll still go to the same in terms of ballots. So thank you very much. PLO, I hope your point is well covered, and they're still here. So we'll carry on with the discussion for today. It was actually an open mic, so it was not directed to anything. We've been here, like today, we chose to protest on the space. So if at all we didn't go out, sorry, I checked yesterday. It was after what they did, guys were not going out today, but they were made to believe that Thursday and Tuesday people are going out. So people wanted to see how they're going to turn to be dummies, and actually they turned to be dummies among themselves because there was nobody to beat. They really waited. So there are some spaces that are quite authentic. So you follow a space that you always find has the same topic all round, because you don't want to highlight on a particular person to be the voice of everyone, because you're going to compromise the person. As at the moment, as the way it is still, we are a bit safer because nobody wants to be fronted and nobody wants to be compromised in terms of leadership skills. So the mic is open. We were touching on every subject and some uncomfortable truth and the real facts and the factual factors that are affecting us, and any topic that you feel that is actually in the movement that touches on something that you needed to be highlighted. So if you're on the speaker panel, we'll carry on. James, I'm seeing you raising your hand. I'll let you speak. And Acheng, you'll allow me to drop you so that I can add others. I will still want the seniors to remain in case somebody wants to ask any question. Ayo, you're welcome. So James, carry on. Piolo, I'll drop you if you're okay, and then I can add other speakers. Karibu, James.
Thank you for this platform. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you're streaming this space. Well, firstly, I am glad to be in the company of Senior Eric Theuri, Wakili Stephen Mbugwa, PLO, Achieng, Ruben Kigame, sir, and the entire fraternity of revolutionaries. It's a pleasure. Secondly, today, after I saw the ban on the protests and the pressure by the communications authority, I kind of had a feeling that people would not stream to town to protest, because lately Kenyans have been buying fear, and I don't understand where we got the money to buy fear, because last I checked we said we were too broke to buy fear. Anyway, I had been slotted for an interview last night. It was an impromptu show with one of the local stations from the Kampa community. I decided to honor the invite because as I read the mood, and as it was confirmed, Kenyans would not head to the street because they feel they have lower moods, they have lesser spirit, the zeal has dissipated, probably because of the fear the government is mongering, and some Kenyans feel they have no reason to fight. They feel that most of the things they were pushing the government to change have been actually reformed, but they do not understand that the president is like a bad principal in a high school. I will use that analogy. Even if you change all the teachers and the senior teacher, If the principal condones corruption in that school, if the principal condones laziness, if the principal influences who gets hired into that school and hires incompetency, that school will never perform. And parents understand that. That's why they often push for the unseating of principals, because they understand that the principal of any high school, for example, is the head of that school in all departments, in the department of finance, in the department of academics, and in all departments. Same as the presidency. President Ruto is the head of government. You all know that the question about who had a majority of seats between Azimio and the Kenya Kwanza government. You know how that tussle went and how the president influenced the independent MPs and how he bought some MPs from the opposition side and forced a majority in the National Assembly. It's quite unfortunate, but that is the status quo. So you have a president who runs the legislature. He has influenced the judiciary and he is the head of the executive. So if Kenya was an high school, then the president would be the principal. So even if he fired the senior teachers and the rest of the teachers and the cooks and the accounts clerk and the bazaar and the school secretary, nothing would change. I mean, the problem is at the top, not those that are junior to him. If any Kenyan cannot see that, then we need to show them. We need to push this message out there. We need to make them understand why we have a problem with the president. And for those Kenyans who've lost the revolutionary zeal because they feel that a few reforms, for example, the dissolution of cabinet, the repeal of the finance bill is going to solve this country, we need to reawaken them. They need to understand that those are merely survival tactics from the head of state because he does not want to relinquish power. If we can manage to reawaken that zeal, that revolutionary spirit, that yearn for change among those that whose battery for revolution is low right now, we can actually get back to pre-finance bill moods. And it's a hard work. It's a tussle. Today I reminded those from my community, I'm not tribal, but I was invited to a TV show and I could not dishonor the invite, especially after I realized that Kenyans were not going to demonstrate today. And I pushed word out there in local language. And I will continue pushing the same word on Twitter, on TikTok, and on ground. We need Kenyans to understand that the problem is at the top. And if we fail at that, then allow me to say sadly, this would be the end of this for some time. We may revive the fire maybe in 2026 or when the president fucks up again. Because as you remember, the breaking point for Kenyans was the finance bill 2024. The absence and the silence of the opposition actually gave us a vacuum, a space to air out our voices undeterred. And we got coverage for the same. If the opposition was as vibrant as it was a year ago, and if the opposition was not silent, we probably would not have gotten that chance. They would have continued negotiating with the government and dialoguing with the government as they have for years. But I'm glad they were silent. I'm glad they were absent. I'm glad we got mad enough and courageous enough to brave tear gas, to brave bullets. I mean, I saw my friends shot left, right. I was shot at myself. I merely survived. We've survived canisters. We've survived abductions, and we are still not safe. But we braved it all. If we can reawaken that spirit in whatever capacity mtu wako nayo, as a content creator, as a lawyer, as a journalist, as an accountant, in whichever profession you are in, we can get back Kenya on track. People need a reason to head out to the street. People need to understand the problem is at the top. I'm sorry for that lengthy introduction, but that is as it is. We need to set stage for a renewal of mind, for a renewal of commitment, because we need a renewal, a renewal of commitment. I have 3 questions. I don't know if Senior Eric Theuri will take them. Is there any other lawyer on the speakers panel? Let me direct them to Senior Eric Theuri. If there's another lawyer in the speakers panel, I think they will collaborate with Senior Eric to answer the questions. One, I have noted with concern that too much power is vested on the president. Well, that is how the constitution was framed, and it is a situation we have to deal with. The first question is it possible, maybe, is it possible to delegate the role of appointing commissioners from the president to perhaps the Chief Justice or the Speaker of the National Assembly, or to any other official in the government apart from the president? Because if the president has to choose between 2 people on who becomes the chairperson, we all know, and history has served us well, that the president will always choose a chairperson who would favor him or her, a chairperson who is willing to be compromised. After all, the president appoints them. It is unfortunate that in this country, presidents dialogue with appointees. And if you are not conforming, if you are too inflexible, the president may decide not to appoint you. After all, if the president appoints an uncooperative, let me put it that way, an uncooperative chairperson, he is sure that he has possibly lost the elections. We all know how chairpersons play a vital role, especially chairpersons of the IEBC Commission. Is it possible to remove such powers of appointment from the president to someone else? That is the first question. The second question, under Article 145, I stand to be corrected, but I think Article 145 addresses the removal of office of the president on grounds on impeachment, on grounds of impeachment. That a motion has to be moved through Parliament by a member of Parliament. Then there has to be reasons to impeach the president. Among the 3 reasons listed in the Constitution includes gross misconduct by the president or the head of state, gross violation of the Constitution of Kenya, or the possibility of the president having committed a crime under Kenyan law or international law. That is it, as it is in regards to impeachment and the reasons for impeachment. So the National Assembly has to confirm the veracity of such. It has to go through a voting. If the motion is approved by a majority of the members of Parliament, I think 3/4, if I'm not wrong, it is sent to Senate and the procedure goes on and on and on. So my question
Thank
was...
you very much, James. James, kindly land so that your question can be responded to allow other speakers to speak. The panel is full and people are really complaining. So we take it brief and then we also allow them to answer.
My question was to advocates here. Of the 3 reasons the president can be impeached on, which one can we pin him on? And the last question. Article 144 guarantees that a president can be removed from office on grounds of incapacitation. This has to be mental or physical incapacitation. The procedure for removal of a president is still outlined, clearly outlined under Article 144. that there are 3 persons who are supposed to be, there is a tribunal that is supposed to be set up by the Chief Justice, I think, of 3 persons from from the medical body, 1 advocate, and 1 person nominated by the president. Some time ago, Lawyer Ndegwa Jiru, senior counsel, pointed out to this as the easiest way to remove a president from office. So my question is, on what grounds, in terms of incapacity, which is the easiest reason to incapacitate a president, either mentally or physically? Is it about his physical health or his mental ability to lead a government? Sorry, I've taken too long. Thank you for the time.
Thank you very much. Senior Eric, I don't know if you'll take that, or Alex.
I could do that. Let me just respond.
Thank you.
Okay, let me begin by saying this, that we find ourselves in a very interesting position. The position we find ourselves is that we have certain grievances and we feel extremely strong about those grievances. You can tell from what James is saying that he has a very clear diagnosis of where the problem is. That might be the easier part for all of us. I mean, being able to point out where the problem is. The more difficult part is how to deal with it. And I keep saying that the law has given us how the Constitution ought to be interpreted, and the Constitution itself has given us how the canons of interpretation or the rules of interpretation. And one of the critical rules of interpreting the Constitution is that you must read it as a whole, and you must read it and act in a manner that advances the Constitution. And I think that is where we are all having a challenge. And I like the conversation that we are beginning to have of looking at the various constitutional means of a removal of the president, constitutional means of removal of the members of parliament if we feel like we are aggrieved with them, and constitutional means of contributing to the government agenda in terms of public participation. So I would want to say that we have options, and we have a lot of options, and we should not be limited to one option only, because public protest is a good way of showing discontent with certain policies of certain decisions that have been made by a government. But they also have their own limitations, and we need to look at the options that are available to us and ask, in view of the limitations that might be there, for example, with public protest and public demonstrations, what other options are available to Kenyans? And I think I like the conversation, because we begin to look at and saying, is recall a possibility? Is impeachment a possibility? Is use of Article 144 a possibility? And that is good, because it shows that we are alive to the fact that we must find the prescriptions to the challenges that we are facing in the Constitution of Kenya. Because what we are all asking for is that the Constitution has a promise, and we want to realize that promise. The Constitution is a social contract between us and and those who we give the power to make decisions over our life, and we would want to see greater meaning in as they undertake those functions. So the reality of the system that we have is that we have a presidential system, and that the president is both the head of state and the head of government and a figure of national unity. It is as a result of his power as a figure of national unity that he is given certain symbolic powers in terms of appointment. What the Constitution has done is that it has tried to restrain the power of the presidency. And the power of the president is then restrained by parliament, is restrained by the executive, and is restrained by the independent constitutional commissions that we have. Of course, it is highly debatable that the institutions that are supposed to restrain the power of the president are working as good as they should be working. And I think, for me, that should be the agitation that we should be having. That is the agitation that we should say we should not relent from, so that we keep calling into account anyone who is exercising public office and asking them, you are not exercising your public powers, your public functions as contemplated under the Constitution. And we begin to look at all these institutions and to say, how can we hold them to account? Because if they are working as well as they are supposed to work, there will be a restraint on the power that the president exercises. And so therefore, the spectra of an all-powerful president will begin to diminish, because that president will be subject to the law. Now, you remember, for example, the Law Society challenged the appointment of the CASs, and the Constitutional Court said that the president cannot do what he has tried to do. And it quashed them and declared that action to be unconstitutional. Now, that is a restraint on the power of the executive. So if we have more and more petitions and more decisions coming from the courts, if we have the police exercising their powers and functions as contemplated only under the Constitution and not subjecting themselves to whimsical political directives, then there would be a restraint on the power of the president. And I think what we need to realize as Kenyans is that we are where we are because we are not faithfully implementing the Constitution. Because if we were, we would not be having the challenges that we have. And so the renewal that I would want to see in the country, the revolutionary spirit that we would want to see in this country, is a spirit and a renewal that talks about, that seeks to enforce not just the letter of the Constitution, but the spirit of the Constitution, so that that spirit should awaken institutions, should awaken our conscience, because it is the only way we can ensure that that is done. If you remove the power of appointing, for example, as appointing commissioners, and you vest it on another body, and you still don't get people of integrity, we will still have the problem. So the problem is not per se the appointing authority. The problem is the process that leads to the appointment on one hand, and on the other hand, is that those who are appointed perhaps either lack integrity, or two, are institutions that are so weak that they are unable to discharge their functions as contemplated under the Constitution. And public scrutiny, the calling to account of public officers, helps to give courage to those that may want to do the right thing, but are in an environment where everyone around them is weak, because it gives them the moral courage to be able to do the right thing. And so when you look at, for example, the appointment of commissioners, there is supposed to be a selection panel. There's supposed to be public participation prior to the appointment of those of the commissioners. And so if we have men and women of integrity who apply, and we have petitions and we have memorandums that come and say this person is of questionable moral standing, but this one is good, we know him, he has of this standing, we have tested him and we know that he's a person of integrity, and we ask the selection panel to appoint that person. And if the selection panel then listens to what people say and gives the country people of integrity. The president will elect into office people of integrity. But if in the process there is inadequate public participation, and the people who are presented to the president are of questionable standing, then the president will almost inevitably appoint those people because it will serve his purpose to have people he can manipulate. And those are now some of the things that I would want us to take from this. Let us not just look at it and say that the institution of the presidency is the problem. Yet, yes, it might be a problem, but it is so much a problem because the restraint that is supposed to be on that office from the other institutions, parliament, judiciary, and constitutional commissions, is not working as well. So if we can fix that mechanisms, that is what will create a problem, because
Oh my God. Eric?
and
Steve, you can pick it up.
He's back. He's back.
Are you there?
He's back.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We lost you for a minute.
So, sorry, I was saying that the problem that we have had is that we have over time relied so much on individuals as opposed to building the credibility of our institutions and ensuring that we have men and women, and there are so many in this country, men and women of character and integrity that can be able to lead the process forward. So finally, let me just comment, and I would want to say that the process of impeachment of a president is a political process. It is a political process. And when it becomes a political process, it is extremely difficult to achieve it unless you have the political numbers. It is extremely difficult to achieve unless you have the sufficient pressure on political parties. And it is literally impossible to do so at this particular juncture, given the kind of parliament that we have. And in any event, even if we were to achieve impeachment as under Article 145, to what end would that impeachment serve? Because ideally, the question should not be so much of the individual. The question should be, what can we do to make our institutions better? And I think that for me, what I look at what is happening in this country is a social, let me just use this word, a social media revolution, because I've looked at the amount of information that is in TikTok, that is in Twitter, and people, the analysis that people are making on the current laws and on the current bills that are in parliament, on the supplementary estimates. And I'm seeing that quantum of knowledge and information, if properly deployed in a meaningful and a coordinated manner, and in ensuring that every piece of policy, every piece of government decision would be infused with the kind of quality and the kind of insight that a lot of us have had, we are going to get to a point where mediocrity will take a back seat, and merit will now become the issue that everyone considers as we undertake public offices. And what that will do is that the men and women who are of integrity and who find it difficult to rise up because perhaps when they try to raise their head, they are hit because it is not fashionable to be a person of integrity in government, then would begin to shine through, and we would see a renewal in our institutions and a new vigor that will reinvigorate the manner in which we exercise public authority and exercise public trust. So I would want to urge all of us, let us not just look at the aspect of we need to be on the streets for us to be heard. Let us use the other mechanisms, petitions, going to court, challenging issues, and calling to account those that we feel are whatever. I look at what happened, for example, to Farah Maalim when he was at the White Sands, and people used social media to raise awareness and to say, is White Sands saying that their values are consistent with the presence of that gentleman there, and Whiteson had to come out and make a statement. That is now what we should be experiencing in this country, calling institutions and calling other people to account and to say, when you host so and so, are you saying that you are supporting the kind of stand that he has taken? That reawakening, I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, is what we need in this country. We do not. It will be much more effective than the protests that we are making, because it will complement the protests, and it will ensure that those who can soil a protest by bringing in goons so that the message is lost would not have that opportunity. So let us look at creatively other mechanisms through which we can hold public officers to account. And then I can assure you that what we are fighting, what all of us seek and want for this country, would be realized if we remain vigilant, if we remain committed, and if we remain patriotic and in observing what the Constitution asks us to observe as we undertake our responsibilities as citizens, and for those who are in public office, their responsibilities as public and state officers.
Co-host,
Thank you very much. I am right here. Thank you very much.
Senior Eric.
James, hold on a minute. James.
Okay. Yes.
Come on, don't spoil it when he's just told us that most of our leaders don't have discipline. Just let me take on the space, and then I can give you the mic.
Okay.
Now, with a lot of reservation, the real answer that it's called uncomfortable truth is like our leaders are having something called misuse of power and lack of discipline, because the Constitution is there to guide you and take you through how you're supposed to lead the people, and then you're taking some mantle in your power because you have the authority, with a lot of reservations. So, and whatever he stated very clearly, we can use other platforms, which are very many. Remember, for the first 2 weeks, they could not go to churches. And then those are the MPs, they could not go to churches. They started driving in small cars that you could not identify them, because when you're sitting somewhere and you want to gnash people and squash them like their pupas, and people refuse, then you cannot fit to be amongst people. So, James, I'll give you the mic back. There are some of the sensitive topics. I know Eric is able to handle it, but we are dealing with leaders who are overusing. It's called misuse and lack of discipline in their power. James, you can go ahead, and then I start circulating the mic. Alex, I will let you speak after James, kindly. And thank you for joining the space.
Thank you. Senior Eric, there was some time ago, I remember Raila Odinga, should I call him former prime minister, was fronting a certain narrative that it is possible to remove a president from power by collecting, was it 2 million signatures from Kenyans? Is that an option constitutionally, or was it a pure political gimmick? That is the last question I had.
PLO, you came back on the mic. Did you have another question? PLO? Alex, you can go ahead. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Did Senior Eric hear the question I asked?
He's still muted, so give him a few. Alex, you can go ahead, and then Eric is still here. He said he's here for a while, so he'll
Yes,
respond to that question.
Yes, thank you very much for giving me the mic, and I also want to thank everyone who is participating and my former president of the Law Society, Eric Deuri. I want to begin from the point that the former president said that the Constitution requires us to interpret it purposively. That is, what did the Constitution intend to address? Unfortunately, it's only us, the citizens, who have been interpreting the Constitution purposively. But that's not a big problem. It's a good thing. Eric also said that we need to stop focusing on the person, and I tend to agree with that. For me, I think the movement that we have right now is about restructuring the state, because this state that we have, this design of this Kenyan state has not been working. So the questions we need to be asking in terms of strategy: what is the structural design of the Kenyan state that we need to answer, to address? We need, how I view it is this way: we need to address policy, we need to address legislation, and we need to address the administrative part of the state. Let me start with the last one, the administrative part of the state. The administrative part of the state includes the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy is like those people we find at Nyayo House, immigration, where you go apply for ID, it takes 7 months, 1 year, whereas the Constitution and the law requires those people to serve you immediately. Another bit of the bureaucracy is what we saw yesterday happening with Macharia Gaido. The law already provides for how the procedures of arrests. You should not be assaulted, you should not be put in handcuffs if you are not running away, but the police go ahead and do it anyway. So we need to discuss how we are going to address the administrative part of the state. Then there is legislation. I will give you an example, and perhaps the lawyers in here, my colleague Steve, we need to be proposing amendments to some of these laws that the executive uses to muzzle Kenyans. A good example is the National Police Service Act. Another one is the Criminal Procedure Code. Do we need to amend it to require that police wear body cams when arresting? Right now, there is nothing that in the law that outlaws your advocate or yourself to record an interview between you and the police. But we have seen Kenyans being assaulted for recording police activities. We have seen a governor saying that they will arrest Kenyans who take videos of city county askaris when they are harassing Kenyans. That is a bit of legislation. Do we need to track the legislation that is still in 1920? For instance, the Criminal Procedure Code was enacted in the 1930s. That was a law that was enacted by Muzungu, and it was meant to perpetuate the colonial state. That's why you will find offenses like vagrancy, offenses like offending the public order. It was meant to ensure that Africans don't go and idle around and offend the white man. So we have an act that was enacted with the attitude of 1930 that has survived post-2010 constitution. So despite us having the 2010 constitution, we cannot go anywhere within that legislative environment. Then there is policy. The policy is what you will see that mostly the cabinet describes itself as the apex policy making institution. Policy, policy in Kenya has largely been a consensus of the political elite. When the political elite say, now we are going to be doing things this way, that's what emanates as Kenyan policy, and that is what cascades into legislation and informs how our bureaucracy operates. So how can we sort of have a record of the offensive policy. And these policies have affected everyone. They have affected agriculture. That's why you will see you're told you need a permit to farm certain crops. Those are certain policy attitudes that we need to address. So we have to take it beyond William Ruto. And the main reason why we must do that is because when we make it about William Ruto, the movement is going to be hijacked by reactionaries. Reactionaries are those people who are waiting for this movement to remove William Ruto so that they can occupy his position and perpetuate that malfunctioning state. So we have to be very careful, because if we make it about the person, it will be hijacked by people who do not want to reform the state, people who do not want to see lasting reforms. Whereas what I believe we are asking is for this state to work for us, so that when a 20-year-old applies for an ID, they do not have to wait for 7 months. When a young advocate, like some I have seen in this forum, go to the court to file pleadings, they will not be asked to bribe a registry clerk. That is the reform we want, a state that works for everybody, so that I don't need to know Eric Theuri for me to get services. I don't need to know anyone to get services. It's not about the person. Let's have a way to track these things. And I was impressed when someone said, do we need to have blockchain experts? These blockchain experts can help us track these things, categorize these aspects of the state, and see where we can pool our collective knowledge to find these reforms. For instance, my own Law Society of Kenya, and this is something I've been asking, probably Steve could explain. Do we have bills or legislative proposals which we can draft and petition Parliament to enact, so that we can start dismantling this old state? So that's all for me for now, and thank you so much for giving me the mic.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alex. Thank you very much, Eric. We'll carry on. Eric, anytime you feel like jumping in, you just jump in. Steve the same, and Alex the same. I'll let you stay for a while. Patriotic, you've been here for a while. I'm sorry I dropped you because I wanted the seniors to handle some legal issues. So kindly you can take the mic and then we proceed. Forgive me, Patriot.
Okay, Nimek, forgive. Thank you very much, KOD, for hosting this space, and thank you everyone who has logged in. Okay, mine ilikuwa just to take you back to history a little bit. Mi nilikuwa nataka kusema all issues that we are having today as a country originate a long time ago. Toka time our forefathers chose to fight for our freedom and our independence, and as they were progressing very well and they were to win, and they were able, and they were that capable to win the fight at the battlefield, kuna pali walikosea. They accepted to be compromised, and that's why they held those things they used to call the first Lancaster conference, huko London, and the fucking second, and that's where everything went wrong. And the same thing, it was about to repeat itself when Mr. Ruto alikuwa anasema ati tukue na dialogue. He wanted to compromise among our us again, using those old tactics. Where alikuwa anauliza tuchague some of our leaders to go there and have a dialogue with them. He wanted to compromise them. I want to tell you this, guys. We should not accept that thing again. This is a test. We are put into the same test again. We should not accept. We should not relent. Kwa sababu I personally feels like we didn't win our forefathers didn't win for our independence. They negotiated it. Our independence was negotiated, and during those negotiations, that's where everything went wrong. That's where the colonialists got away to penetrate into our country and invade everything. That's why we are having issues up to date. So for now, the war is not about only William Samoei Ruto to step down. We want to turn every stone and resolve our issues completely for a long-lasting result. Okay, thank you. Mine was just that. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. I will go to Tribeless and then Mogocho, then Engineer. Africa, you'll go after them. Alex, again, anytime you want to jump in, you just jump in.
Right. Thank you for passing the mic. I believe this is the first time I'm having an opportunity to speak on KOT Sonko's space. Mine is just to highlight the issues that I noted. Yesterday, I was part of the team that was in town as a journalist, and we were met with harsh stance from the police officers. I was hit by a tear gas canister on my leg, which is so unfortunate. And when I went to ask why I was being tear gassed, and I was told that enda hospitali, utibiwe, urudi tena. You see, that is the kind of people we are relying on to probably give us security in terms of when there is Maandamano and so forth. So it's total crap. And personally, I'm disappointed, and that is why I'm looking forward to after the 7 days of elapsed, that will be on Wednesday. I will be on the streets as well, raising my concern about the freedom of the press. So this government is trying to, it's trying like to dictate, and they want to make every other journalist or other media station a puppet. So when they say this goes, it goes. If you go against that, you're met with harsh conditions that will not give you advert slots. This is going to happen, which is total